Good evening, and welcome back to the Coding Fanatic YouTube channel. This is your host, Richard Clark. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are liking the content here on this channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can see when I upload new videos, which is weekly. Also, you can find my social media in the links in the description. That being said, let's jump into the video. Now, I am making a change of pace this week. For new viewers, I've been working with React Native for the last couple months, looking to expand my app development skills in my skill set into a new area. And it is with no regret or sorrow whatsoever that I inform you, I'm no longer working with React Native. That's right. All that time and energy that I put in, and I'm jumping back to Java and Android Studio. The reason for this is, and we're going to get set up here while I explain exactly what's going on. So a friend of mine told me that, who was doing a coding boot camp, recommended that I learn React Native because he said it's in demand and it's a really great tool for building apps. And, it's supposed to be fast and easy just to build interfaces for the apps that you want to create. So I figure, okay, in that case, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm used to building everything using Android Studio using Java, but it seemed like a good opportunity to try something new. And it's been a lot of hardship for me working with React Native. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't been all bad. I did manage to build some basic interfaces and make my way through some of the tutorials in the documents and the getting started documentation. But there's also been a lot of issues along the way as well. From the Watchman crawl troubleshooting to now the React Native CLI updates are not working well with the React Native gesture handler package, which is required for building apps that have multiple screens. And, I tried all the different solutions and messaging people on Twitter and all different solutions. And I was unsuccessful in getting my apps to work just out of the box, just building a new app and adding navigation. And of course, you can't have an app that doesn't navigate across multiple screens. Or, you can, but not my apps. So, that being said, I've decided that I'm going to put my focus back to Java and Android Studio. Now, at a later date, maybe in 10 projects or so, I'll take a look at React Native again. But for now, I'm good. So, moving right along, we're going to start from scratch here with the Salesman travel app. And I'm going to start by doing a brand new Android Studio project. So we're going to choose an empty activity, and I'm going to put it in, I have a special directory that I use for my Java projects now. And as you can see here, I have a separate place for React Native. Like I said, it's not all bad, but I want to start making applications. And I feel like I should use the tools that I'm already familiar with, which are Java and Android Studio. At a later date, I will come back to React Native, but for now, let's stick to Java and Android Studio. So here I am in the projects folder, and we're going to call this, I'll call it Travel YT. Now I already have a travel folder I work on this app outside of these videos as well, but I wanted to have a separate area a separate workspace for when I record. So here I am. So travel YT, save location is set, and we'll go to finish. Okay. And now for this project, I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to, hang on a second, click on add files to Git. All right, back to the terminal. All right, so it looks like for some reason, these files were put in the projects directory instead of the travel directory. So what we're going to do is we're going to close the project out, and I'm going to go through and remove those files and come back and do this again. Okay, we are back. We're going to start a new Android Studio project with an empty activity and go to Java projects. And in this folder, I'll make a separate one here for the time being. I will call it Travel YTA for the time being, but only for this video. Moving forward, I'll use the actual Travel YT directory, but today we're going to call it Travel YTA. Why not? Say OK and finish. Great. Okay, and add all, and add to Git. All right, so here is our project. Everything is here, and we're going to hit the run app and run it on our clone device. Okay, and while I wait for that, yeah, so something I like to do is when I'm working with Android Studio is I will change the priority of the processes. I'll lower them just so that my computer doesn't lock up in the event that it starts to take up too much memory. I know most people run with 16 gigs minimum of RAM when they do software development, but I have yet to upgrade the RAM on this laptop, so bear with me. For the time being, we're just going to lower the priority of these processes. All right, so here we are. Here's our vanilla application. Now we can get started. Almost. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the terminal, and we're going to say code travel YTA. All right, now the reason why I use VS Code is I need to, you guys need to see this too, right? If we have everything running in Android Studio, you're not going to be able to see much. This text is quite tiny, so small. Now, I'm wearing glasses and sitting at my computer, so obviously I can see it just fine, but I need to make sure that you can see it just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to use VS Code, and I'll show you a little trick that I came up with that I use while I write code for my Android apps. So here we are, ready to get started. The first thing that I would like to do is point your attention to the action bar up here. You see how it says my application? So me personally, I don't like to see this up here while I don't want this in my app, in my own application. So what we can do is we'll move to a file in this directory here in app, source, main, resources, and we're going to go down to layout values and go to styles.xml. So this line right here that says parent equals theme.appcompat.light dark action bar, we're going to change this to read no action bar. Save it and come back to Android Studio and hit this little lightning bolt icon, which applies the changes to our app. All right. And once that's completed, we'll see that now the app closes, restarts, and now our action bar is gone. So that's that one change that says no action bar. That's what it does, is it removes the action bar. And now we are ready to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this file. And today we're going to build the home screen of the application. So the first thing I want to do is open up layouts, activity_main.xml. Right. So the first thing to do here the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this on a separate line. And I ran into an issue a while back where I removed the layout and changed it, and for some reason the app still that's all I did, and the application wouldn't compile, and it was because I had accidentally deleted this entire line, not realizing that this element was part of it, and this element's necessary to making sure your layout appears on your phone. So if you delete that, you're gonna have a bad time. So always make sure you separate that first element. All right, so we're gonna come up here, highlight this text, and we're gonna change this to a linear layout here, and we're gonna do the same thing down here. Linear layout. Save. And now I'm ready to compile this application. And we're going to say apply changes. Okay. And as you can see, no issues. Everything checks out. Boom. Now the hello world, that text view moved all the way up to the top of the screen. The reason for that is the change in layout. So a linear layout allows you to align different on-screen views, either horizontally or vertically. And by changing this to a linear layout, by default, everything is aligned vertically, at least. And so the text view moves all the way up to the top of the screen. What I like to do is, in order to give you an example so you can tell how everything's aligned, what I do is I set the background of the text view to say just any color, really, doesn't matter, but I like to use colors that are obvious. So let's say we set it equal to, I don't want it to be too bright, so F00345. Okay, right, and we hit save and we apply changes. All right, and we just wait a second for that to come up. All right, so you see this red. Now everything, the background of this text view has turned red. So what we can do is make 3 of them, or 2. I like to make 3. And we're going to make this one green and this one blue. Save and apply our changes. And once the changes are applied, you'll see that, okay, so we have all 3 views, but they're aligned horizontally. So by default, linear layouts will align the views horizontally. But for this application, we want everything to align vertically. So we're going to change this guy right here. The orientation, actually, yeah, orientation will equal, and set that to vertical, and save. And once we apply our changes, all right, now you see everything is lined up vertically instead. Now I know you can't read the text here, and that's okay. We'll get to that in a minute, but I'm going to do everything piece by piece just to set everything up so that as we go through the app, you can see the changes and all the different pieces needed to build this application. All right, so we have our orientation. Now you don't have to do this in your app, but me personally, I like to organize these elements alphabetically so that I can find what I'm looking for quickly. All right, so we can remove these 2 text views. We'll come back to this later on, or we'll keep them for now. All right, so something that I always do is I remove these layout constraints, and the reason for that is these elements are specific to a different type of layout. Earlier, if you remember, we had a constraint layout, but we changed it to linear, so these elements actually don't do anything. So we're just going to go ahead and remove those. Cool. So those have been taken care of. All right. Now for this app, I would like to have a I want to make it have a black background. So we're going to set our background up here, and the element for that is Android background. And we're going to set that equal to black, and the hex code for black is all zeros. So the way I think of it is, if it had, for black, it's all zeros, and for white, it's all Fs. So if it's full color, it's white, and if there's zero color, it's black. Don't forget your octothorpe, otherwise it will give you an error. In fact, I'll even show you what happens. If you save this and go back, then, well, it actually won't give you an error here, but when you try to apply the change, you'll see that it won't be able to run the task, and it'll say failed linking file resources. So, and the reason for that is you're trying to set the background equal to a number, which does not compute. So we're going to go ahead and change that to, put that octothorpe in there, apply changes, and you'll see that everything runs as normal. Okay, so we have our black background as promised, and the next step will be to, let's go back to our application here. All right, so for our next step, we want to make sure that the layout, it takes up the entire screen, so that all the content that appears in here can take up any part of the screen. So we would set the layout width equal to match parent, which means which in this case is the phone screen. That would be our parent view. So layout width is match parent, and height is also match parent. So the width would be the entirety of the phone, and the height would also be the entirety of the phone. But like I said earlier, I personally would change this to say height first and width second, just so that it's in alphabetical order. I really can't stress enough how easy it is to find what I'm looking for, and how easy it will be for you as well. You keep everything in nice, neat fashion. I promise you, you will not regret it. Cool. All right. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to change these colors here to, we're going to lower it from full down to say 3, because the next, in one of our upcoming steps, things are going to get pretty crazy, or they're going to take up more space on the screen. And I don't want you to have to stare at these bright neon colors while you're looking at your computer screen. So we're going to, there we go. They're a little bit more faded now. Cool. Okay. So we've already set our background. We've set the layout height and width, and we set the orientation of all our child views. So we're done with setting up the layout for now. Let's go on to our 3 text views. So my plan for setting up this app will be a text view up here that reads the title of the application. I know the action bar can do that too, but I don't want the action bar. I want to create an actual text view. I'd prefer to set a text view that does this for me. So we'll have a text view up here that reads the title of the application with 2 options here for interacting with the app. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change our gravity of each of the, or excuse me, not the gravity. We're going to set the width and height of each of these child views. So instead of the height wrapping around the content, you know what? Let's do the second one. The second one will say we'll wrap content. We're going to set this to, you know what, actually, we're going to keep all these as wrap content. So what this does is it wraps the container or the layout around the actual content that's inside. And here we have text that says hello world, and we're going to wrap it inside that. And the reason why I'm keeping it as wrap content is because when we make the text larger, we want it to match that same size. So the first thing we're going to do here, let's leave the height and width alone for now. We're going to change the gravity. You're probably wondering to yourself, what on earth is that? Well, it's quite simple. The gravity determines where the view will render on the screen. So if I say, let's set it to center and apply changes, we're going to do that with this top view up here, right? And now instead of it rendering here on the left hand side by default, it renders in the center of the screen. And we're going to do the same thing with the other two views as well. So Android layout gravity equals center. And we're going to repeat the same thing here. Center. Okay, save. And we're going to apply changes and tasks, and everything's good. All right, so everything is in the middle now. Great. That's exactly how we want it to be. All right, so now our gravity has been set. The next step here would be to set the weight of our views. Now, the weight determines how much of the screen each view will take up in the application. So if you set the weight numbers, well, I'll just show you. It's easier if you see it, if I explain it. But pretty much using the numbers, using the weight, you can determine how much it takes up on screen. So let's say, for instance, you said Android layout weight equals 1, right? And let's say we do the same thing for these other two text views. Okay. Now we come back over here, apply changes, and you'll see that now all of them take up the same amount of space on the screen. So back here in our XML file, they each have the same weight of 1, and they all take up a third of the screen. So I think of it as 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 3, and each of these takes up 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. If I were to set this one equal to 2, the numbers don't matter as much, because even if I change these all to say 2, 2, and 2, you'll get the exact same result. And the reason for that is when the elements are rendered, it determines, it just uses the overall numbers to determine, all right, this is how much space you'll get. But the number itself is kind of immaterial as long as it compares it to the other weights of the other views. So it doesn't really matter which numbers you use. You can use 10, 50, 100. I would keep it simple and just use 1. Now let's see what happens when we set our top view to 2 and our second and third view, our green and blue ones, to 1, while the top one, red, is set to 2. So what it does now is our red view takes up 2/4 of the screen. 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. So it takes up half the screen, and then the other two take up 1/4 each. And we could go even further, and we can say, what if we set this one equal to 8 and set the other ones equal to 2? Or set the other two equal to 1. Well, 8 plus 2 is 10. So the top red view should take up 4/5 of the screen, while the bottom views take up 1/10 of the screen each. So it's all fractions here, but the moral of the story is the weight determines how much space is taken up by each view. Now, for this application, I'm not going to use a weight for the top view, and you'll see why later on. But for now, we're going to have no weight, or weight for the top view, and we're going to have a weight of 1 for the second and third view. So we're going to save it, come back over, apply our changes, and once everything renders, all right, so you see that the top view, the red one, has been smushed all the way up to the top. That's okay for now. We'll leave that one alone for the time being. Okay, so our layout weight has been set for each of our views. So the next step will be to change the text. So instead of boring old hello world text, we're going to make this top one say Salesman travel. The second one will read view list, and the last will read search list. Okay, now you won't be able to see any of this because of how small the text is, so we're going to go a step further. Excuse me. And we're going to change the text size. So Android text size equals, and we'll say 25 points. All right, so 25 points, 25 point font for the text for the Salesman travel for the title text view. And for the bottom two, we'll say Android text size equals, we'll say 20. And I'll do the same thing for the last one as well. $20 points. Save. And now we apply our changes. Right, and once this is applied, right, so you see we have Salesman Travel, View List, Search List. Now, the Salesman's Travel text is aligned to the left by default, and we don't really want that because it doesn't line up properly with the rest of our text. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our text alignment. Say Android text alignment equals center. And I'll take it another step further. Let's change the color of our text as well so that we can actually see what it is that we're typing. So we're going to go with Android text color equals, and let's say we're going to say green, but not too bright green. Like I said, I don't want to blind you guys with this these neon colors or anything. All right, so Android text color equals, all right, we're going to make this one yellow. For all my people who all my HTML folks out there, I think you already know which colors I'm going for here. Also, if you look at my icon, you can probably figure it out already. Okay, so we've changed the text color, and we've changed the text alignment of Salesman's Travel to be in the center. Let's save our changes, come back to the Android Studio, and apply them. All right, so you can see our text now in the title is this bright green, and the options are a yellow color with a black background. I gotta say, this really does not match at all with the background colors for these views. I mean, it's oh man, this is not nice to look at all. But that's kind of the point. The reason why I set these. Again, reason why I set these colors for the background is so that I can identify how the text view will render. Not the text itself, but the view. So you see we have the top one, which has no weight, renders with whatever space is left after the middle and third text views are rendered. So these both have a weight of 1. So they're going to have the exact same amount of space. Or they're both going to take up an identical amount of space on screen. This top view does not have a weight, but because its height is set to wrap content, it'll only take up as much space is needed to render this text, Salesman's Travel. Whatever's left will then be split between the two which have assigned weights. So that's the reason why excuse me, that's the reason why it's rendered the way it is. All right, so now that I have the colors and everything set, I don't need to, or now that I can see the text, I don't particularly need the background colors anymore, but just hold tight for a minute here. All right, so what I will do, I'll remove this top background color since I'm done with that, and I'll also remove actually, I'll keep the bottom one for now, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so while those changes are applied, all right, so we've already set the text. We've set the alignment. There's one thing remaining here, just styling wise. I don't really want view list to appear so close to the title of the application. I would rather it not be this close to the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change it so that the text renders here in the middle instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the gravity element, not layout gravity, but gravity. And what that will do is change the content, or it'll change the way the content within the view itself is aligned. So we're going to set this one equal to center so that it appears directly in the center of the view. So just to recap, layout gravity determines how the gravity of the view within the entire layout. So remember, we have a linear layout set. So all of these are set to center, and all the layout gravities here are set to center, so they will appear in the center of the screen. You see these black bars here? So the background of the layout is here, so you can see that the text view is rendering in the center of the layout. Now, when I set gravity, not layout gravity, but gravity, this element specifies the content of the view itself. So the content of this view, which is text, so the text will now render in the center of the text view. So we're going to save it, apply our changes. All right, see? So now you can see that it appears here right in the center. Great. So now that we have figured out our placement of the text, we can finally, at long last, remove these ugly, horrendous background colors. Man. And apply changes. And with that, ladies and germs, that concludes the setup of the home screen of the application. So the next part will be configuring the text views so that I can click on view list and it'll take me to the list of addresses, and configuring search list so that when I click on this, it brings up a screen that allows me to search through the list for a specific address. So yeah, this is how I set up the home screen. If you like this video, like I said, don't forget to click like and subscribe to see more videos like this weekly. And if you want to keep up with content as I put out new videos, then click the notification bell so you can be alerted when new videos come out. And next time I'll jump into how to display a list of the addresses in another screen. Yeah, so this came out pretty well. When I did this on my own, I noticed that by setting each of the text views with a red, green, and blue background, that it would be easier for people to see. But when I did it, I had the super bright neon colors, and for me personally, I didn't really notice it, but I thought to myself, when I record this, I should make sure to tone it down, because the last thing you want to do is stare at some bright red, green. I mean, it was bad, but I was able to tweak it so that you guys could see clearly while you watch this video. But yeah, so this is it. This is the main screen. Like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if you want to see the source code for this, or this XML file, I have it, or it's already on my GitHub. I remade this just now from scratch, but it's already uploaded to my GitHub under Travel YT for YouTube. I have a link to my GitHub in the description. Follow me on Twitter for more posts and information just about what I'm doing with my projects throughout the week. That's also in the description. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is your host, Richard Clark, signing out, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.